Well, that great funky playing is from the Haas Sisters of the USA, who were international guests at CresFest in country Victoria in 2023. Welcome to this CresFest world, and my name's Neil Adam. CresFest is a folk and roots music festival in Creswick near Ballarat, which takes place at the start of April each year. Helping organise CresFest has led me into all kinds of amazing conversations and experiences, and these podcasts are inspired by them. Today, if you haven't already had the immense good fortune to meet Stella Savy, then you're going to meet her now. Stella is a professional musician, music teacher, and one of Victoria's most renowned choir leaders. In this conversation with Judy Turner, the director of CresFest, Stella talks about her Seychellois heritage and her musical journey. Over to you, Judy and Stella.
Tell us about the time that you were tasked with creating a choir, a 500 voice choir or whatever it was, in Melbourne, singing songs from the Seychelles.
Okay, so I'd been working with the Blood for a little bit, and Roger King, who was the CEO of the Blood at the time, then discovered that I had Seychelles heritage. So he went home and Googled it and went, "Oh my God, this place, what? Stella, how have I never known this about you before?" Because I guess prior to then, I never really talked about my cultural heritage. Lots of people assumed that I was this, that or the other. But it was one of those things, you know, growing up in regional Victoria in the 80s was very racist. And so I just never talked about it, didn't explore it, just left it. It was there, it was just packed away. And so Roger kind of went, "No, hang on, come on, bring it out. Let's do the Seychelles." And so that was huge for me, because it was like, oh, okay, now I get to go down this path of my culture. And I was a little bit scared because Creole is not an easy language to speak or sing in, really. It's quite...
Is Seychelles Creole different from other Creoles?
It's similar to what they call the Vanilla Isles. So you've got Mauritius and Reunion and, all those sort of, that belt of kind of islands.
Madagascar, is that one?
Oh, Madagascar's got its own language, but I'm pretty sure they would all speak a Creole because of just the trading that happened there. So the Creole, if you're living in Mauritius and you're living in Seychelles, you can communicate quite well with each other, but it's a bit like Scottish and Australian English. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's differences there, but essentially the same language. But it's tricky. It's a tricky language to kind of just roll off the tongue when you're singing.
And you hadn't learned it as a child, but you had the sound of it in your ear.
Yeah, so I could understand Creole and I'd had it there, but
so Roger said to you, "Go learn a whole new language and a whole new repertoire."
Well, Roger said, let's get the choir singing. Let's have this theme of the Seychelles. And that's not an uncommon thing for the White Millennium Chorus to do that, where we sung songs of Timor and everyone's singing in Tetum. I felt very edgy because I don't speak Creole. Yeah. My dad does and my family do, and there's lots of Seychellois, not lots, but quite a lot of Seychellois in Melbourne, and so it had to be right. I couldn't just fudge it, So I spent some a couple of weeks with my uncle, he was the scholar of the family. So we sat and we listened to all these songs, and I'd say, I was listening for songs that I thought would be simple to get your mouth around, that would work with a choir. And so I had 40 songs that I thought could work. And then he sat there and he listened to them, and I'd say, "What's it about?" He'd go, "That one's about sex." I'd be like, "Okay, dunk, right, what's this one about?" And so we kind of whittled it down to what I thought was a nice program. But then there was the Tingé ones that he couldn't translate. He said that's in an old Creole. I don't know what they're about. So put these songs together, and then was like, okay, now I've got to go to the Seychelles and see it and be a part of it, so that when I'm teaching, all these people, I can say this is what it is like.
So how old are you when you first go back to the Seychelles?
Oh, I'm a new mum. I'm in my 30s. Yeah.
And you've never been before?
Never.
You've seen pictures and heard stories?
Yeah, my whole life. Yeah. That back home we used to, got said so many times at my house that it was almost a mantra. Look, the thing about the Seychelles was that in the 60s and 70s there was trouble. So my family fled, they came to Australia. The plan was that they wanted to go back. That never happened. There was a coup d'etat, there was lots of violence. There was, a lot of political unrest. My dad never spoke Creole with us because he thought that they would never be able to go back. So that was always kind of the understanding was that we would never go there because it was always going to be problematic and potentially dangerous.
You're listening to This CresFest World, and you're listening today to Stella Savy talking with Judy Turner about her Seychellois heritage. The music we're listening to in the background at the moment is a fantastic Seychellois singer called Daryl Bell, recorded in Melbourne with the Boîte Millennium Chorus under the direction of Stella in 2013.
So then to go back again in 2012 with Dad was fantastic, for him and for me.
Yeah.
The other part of that was really interesting was that I was pushing to learn about the music and the culture. So we were going to lots of gigs and we were going to meet and talk with other artists, and Dad got to kind of understand almost the creative world that he not necessarily engaged with as a young man. As a young man, he was into motorbikes and fishing and, farming and all that sort of stuff. He went to muchas and he liked the music, but it wasn't his thing necessarily. And so then for him to kind of go, oh, right, yeah, this stuff. Yeah, oh, yeah, I remember that. He found that really fascinating, and also we saw at Seychelles that he would not have shown us if we were just going there for a holiday, if that makes sense.
And presumably the folk music or the traditional music of Seychelles is minority like it is in almost every country you can think of.
Yeah, so one of the things that's very interesting for me about the Seychelles is that because it's stunningly beautiful. It is paradise.
I've seen the pictures.
And, tourism is a big part of how they make their money. And so there's this psyche in Seychelles which is starting to shift. And this is partially because of the project that I did in Melbourne. But there's this sort of overwhelming kind of thing where people want to come and they don't want to know that. They want to sit in a hotel poolside and have massages and eat, beautiful fish. And it's like, no. People do actually want to know about your culture. And so you go, they say, oh, there's live music tonight at the hotel down the road, and you go there, and it's like 1980s covers. Tina Turner, and and you're like, and these guys are brilliant musicians, but playing such cheesy kind of stuff.
And you come along from Australia, and you say to them, how about this other stuff?
Yeah.
What do they say? Do they say, get out of here? Or
No, they go, oh, really? Like, really? That's what you want to know? And I'm like, that's exactly what I want to know.
So it's like they've hidden it in the cupboard somewhere and they can bring it out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then...
So in a sense, you allowed them to bring it into the light.
Yeah, in a way.
Is that overstating it?
Possibly a little bit, because there were people trying to do that, but they have always had like a national troupe, and they would do the old Creole stuff, but only at the Creole Festival or when a dignitary, a bit like how we do with our indigenous music here. It's not embedded in what we do. We bring it out for the Commonwealth Games, it's not part of what we do. And I think that doing the project, and when we showed footage of that to the Minister for Culture, he was very embarrassed about that, because when he understood, he said, "Oh, so these are all Seychellois people," and we're saying, "No, they're Australians who don't speak Creole."
Yeah.
He couldn't believe it. Like, he was like, "Oh," and then I said, "And there's been, over 1,000 kids learning these songs as well, children," and then he was like, "We don't have that happening in our schools." So
did they try and get you to come back and teach it in their schools?
Yes. So I did a workshop in the French school, because they're an independent school, and they were happy for that to happen. In the Seychelles, they have public health, public education, public housing, everything. So the Minister for Education manages the curriculum across all the schools. They manage the budget, they manage The Minister for Education, who I've never actually managed to have a conversation with, has always kind of avoided me, has always, said, oh, yes, of course, this is important, and then nothing happens. And so that's something where that actually needs to be fixed.
The nest that Stella lives in is at the top of the community music tree. Community musicians of all backgrounds get to sing and play with top flight professionals. In this sound clip behind me, Stella is singing a song written by another Ballarat star, Geoffrey Williams, for his Windrush show, about the racism faced by West Indian migrants to Britain in the 1960s. You can hear the 200-person choir under Geoffrey's leadership behind Stella's vocal.
You'll never see another penny from me.
Whoa, that was some vocals, Stella, and the audience really appreciated it. Now back to the conversation between Judy and Stella.
The connection between what we're saying and what we're doing every week by acknowledging the Jajawarang people that don't actually understand what that means.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about music, where you can actually reiterate what that culture is, who these people are. We're singing this language. So whether it's in Australia or Torres Strait or Seychelles or wherever, it needs to be there. And what's interesting is, when I go to Ghana, Ghana was colonised, but the culture is still there. The heritage is all still there. There's a president, but he doesn't do anything unless the House of Chiefs and the kings agree with what he's saying. The kings and the chiefs still hold power. It's not uncommon to see a high-flying businessman with his briefcase just wrapped in a piece of traditional cloth. Everybody can sing their culture's songs, dances. They know it because it's in school. They have, whole days where they're learning all the songs and they can do all the dances and they're immersed in that culture. Everywhere, from the fabrics with the Adinkra symbols, in their houses, which remind them of who they're connected to, what they mean for them, and then they're on their mobile phones. So they learn English in school, but they all speak,
What's
maybe
the language
to a friend.
called? There's several languages in Ghana.
There's 38 national languages.
We've got some
in Ghana.
beautiful footage of you with a group of Ghanaian kids.
Yeah. And so this is the thing where I teach Sansa Kroma about a hawk. It's a song about a hawk. It's warning kids to look up when they're looking after their baby brothers or sisters, which culturally is very different to here. You wouldn't send an 8-year-old out with your newborn baby to look after them for the afternoon. You just wouldn't do that. But that's what happens in Ghana because that's what needs to happen and it still happens. And so the song, Sansa Kroma Nine Woche Kokoma, it's reminding you to look up for the hawks because a newborn baby is the size of a baby goat.
Yes.
It's food. So these are the things that when you talk to kids in Australia about that, they go, what?
Yeah.
No, really? And you go, well, that's culture. And so that's where teaching those sort of songs is broader than just here's a little song that's fun to sing.
Exactly, yeah.
It's where We're talking about ways of life and embedding that in what we do.
I hope you enjoyed that. I really did. I think it's great to hear Stella talking about music as a force for good and something that can make things better in our society. Hearing Stella talk about the Minister for Culture in the Seychelles, not necessarily being prepared to hear about the importance of music education in Seychellois schools, made me realise that actually the story here is not all that different. Here in our local town of CresFest, there are 3 state-funded primary schools, no permanent music staff and no ongoing funded music programs. So it's not only in the Seychelles that a bit of action is necessary. This has been This CresFest World number 3, recorded on Dja Dja Wurrung country near Creswick. My name's Neil Adam and I look forward to being with you next time. Oh yes, and on your way out, have a little listen to Natalie and Brittany Haas.